All right. Well, I got to tell you, I'm really excited for today's episode because it really doesn't matter what we do for a living, but it seems like almost everybody at some point wakes up a few years into their career and thinks, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? Am I doing the right thing? Right? Where it just feels like sometimes we need to find our way. And, there's the old saying, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I see this so much of the time in some people's career is they're not happy in a particular circumstance that they're in. And often what they end up doing is effectively throwing the baby out with the bath water. And we don't need to do that. And I'm excited to share with you the discussion that I had with Chenise, because she's got a great story that everybody needs to hear. And so whatever you do, listen to this entire episode, because you're going to hear exactly what you need to hear today to help you improve your life. And with that, let's roll the episode. All right, Chenise. Well, I am excited to have you here. You've got a beautiful smile and a beautiful energy about you. So
Oh,
welcome.
thank you, Jason.
Welcome. And we're kind of, we're Pacific Oceaning it in today's episode, right? I'm in California, you're in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
But maybe just introduce yourself a little bit to the people that are listening, and then let's kind of jump in, because you've got a great story that I want to hear and that other people want to hear as well, of kind of how your career has gone the way that it has. So take her away.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Chenise Iwamasa. I'm a lawyer, a commercial leasing lawyer in Honolulu, Hawaii. I've been practicing law for about 17 years now. I'm also a mother of two very energetic children. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. So, I'm busy doing all the things and running my law practice, serving my clients. And I have a very micro niche practice where I help small business tenants primarily with negotiating better leases and navigating lease issues.
Okay. Yeah. So it's, a couple of things that you just brought up there is, you have your own firm and you're also a mother,
Yes.
right? So I think that's, maybe we'll talk a little bit about this as well. But, like I said, because I want to hear your story. But I think it's important for everybody listening too, right? It's like, we all have families, we all have kids. There's all this other stuff that you're trying to do, as well as running your business.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's maybe where, let's just jump in and get into your story, because I'm guessing that this is going to come up as well. And so people that are listening, it's going to resonate with them, because there's a lot of people who are mothers or fathers that are listening to this as well. So maybe explain a little bit, because, yeah, I'm a CPA. I have, professional, we are both trained in professions, right?
Yes.
And but kind of explain the journey and how you got to where you are, because I know, especially with attorneys, I've heard this from a lot, is they wake up one day and they're like, why the hell did I become a lawyer? And I'm guessing that you had that kind of experience maybe too. So just kind of share your story, and then we'll dig in a little bit deeper as we get going through here.
Sure, sounds good. So my story actually starts way back in elementary school because I had wanted to be an attorney since I was in the 5th grade. Looking back to the 11-year-old Chenise, the reasons really why I wanted to be a lawyer is because I wanted to help people and I wanted to fight for underdogs, and I thought that the way to do that was to be a lawyer and the lawyers that go to court, right? Because that's what I saw on TV. I used to watch Law and Order, The Practice, Ally McBeal, all of those good lawyer shows. And so I followed that path. So all the way through school, undergrad, I went to law school. And I started off my career actually as a litigation attorney. So I was a civil litigation attorney, going and battling out cases in court. And the funny thing is that I very quickly realized that it wasn't a good fit for me. I would say, I was doing that for about 3 years. And within the first year, I was like, I just found it very energetically draining to be fighting all the time. So, you're going into court, you're fighting with opposing counsel. Some attorneys love it, right? That's what they thrive off of. But for me, I just knew immediately, like I would come home at the end of the day, I just feel completely drained. And my favorite parts of my days at that time were the mediations, the settlement conferences, the negotiations to try to resolve disputes. So at that point in my career, about 3 years in, I decided to make a change. So, and at that time, it was hard for me because I thought, hey, I wanted to be a litigation attorney my whole life since I was in the 5th grade, right? Now what? And so I joined a boutique real estate law firm doing transactional work. So what that means, the litigators go to court and the transactional attorneys basically draft contracts, negotiate deals. So I kind of shifted my practice area to that, and I liked it. I enjoyed it much more. As a better fit for me. Doing transactional work, negotiations. I'm definitely a more collaborative, deal making type of attorney in my heart, and I felt that. So I felt like I was shifting into a space that felt more aligned with who I am. But at that firm, I was still, we're representing many corporate developer type of clients in commercial real estate, purchase and sale contracts, commercial leasing on the landlord and the tenant side, as well as very big, large hundreds of millions of dollars worth in real estate and development finance transactions. So it was very stressful. You still have that level of stress. And I kind of worked my way up to being a named partner in that law firm. And although I was much happier than I was as a litigator, I think there was just something still inside me that didn't feel completely aligned. And I didn't know what it was. So there was a period of years where I was kind of searching, in myself. It's like, I wanted to, sometimes you meet people and they're like, I am a judge and I am so grateful that I'm a judge. This is what I'm meant to do. And I come into work every morning and I love my job, right? Those type of people. And I wanted that. And I knew in my heart that I didn't have that at the time, but I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. So you're kind of in that limbo land where I was reading a lot of books, like trying to figure out what it is, like I would take people out to lunch in different industries. And I try to just, gather as much information as I could to figure out, maybe is there something else for me? And I was seriously considering, maybe it's not the law, and maybe this is not, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe this is not really what I was meant to do. And maybe, I'm a multi-passionate person. I like to bake. I like to do a lot of different things. So I was like, I don't know. My family was telling me to open a bakery and, different types of things like that. And so that's where I was at that time.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because as you're talking there's some themes, and I'm sure we're going to kind of come back to some of this too as we dig in more. But I thought it was interesting. You started off wanting to help people and fight for the underdog, right? Those are some of the words that you use, and I had forgotten until you were kind of sharing that. And here you were at 5th grade wanting to become an attorney, right? Because when I was growing up as a teenager, I was going to be a leverage buyout financier. I was going to buy and sell companies, right?
Wow.
That's what I was planning to do. And then, along the way, I got involved in politics a little bit, and had some, worked in that kind of an area. And so I thought, okay, now I'm going to do poli-sci, get my law degree, right? That's kind of the route that a lot of people end up going on that. But I remember, because as you were sitting here talking about it being energetically draining, right? I remember an experience that I had where I got pulled over by some cops because the company truck, it wasn't my truck, it was a company truck, right? The license plate tag had expired.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, they played good cop, bad cop, and were asking me questions. And I realized there was no right answer. The way they were asking me the question, it didn't matter which way I responded. It wasn't like the right answer. And I remember thinking, because for a while I was going to be a civil or criminal attorney as well, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was just like boom, as I was sitting there in the truck, and it's like, I can't be an attorney. I don't want to be the person making people feel uncomfortable
Mm.
and put them in a bind to where they can't actually answer the question, because whichever way they answer,
Yeah.
I'm right and I'm getting to say what I wanted, right? But and that was for me, and so I took a different route at that point. But I think it's interesting, and I'm sure we're going to get there, because we kind of stopped your story where you're working, with the larger developers, commercial interests, these larger multi-million-dollar
Mhm.
projects. But the whole time you've wanted to help people and fight for the underdog,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, some of the words that you use there about you're searching, don't quite feel aligned, but you're not quite sure what that means.
Yeah.
So pick up the story. What ended up happening? Because again, I'm sure lots of people that are listening feel the same way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's been different times in my career when I didn't necessarily feel aligned. So
Mhm.
you figured it out though. So, right. That's why we have you here, because so many people are sitting there like you were a few years ago, like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
So,
would say, the number one thing in that space, even at the time when I didn't yet know what it was, and I was searching, I had other friends, so other colleagues, lawyers who were in a similar space, who they were not happy, but they weren't doing anything about it, right? So what I tried to do differently is, you are where your attention is, right? So if you're just sitting back and just doing the daily grind, doing the work, you're not happy, you complain about it every day to your friends, but you keep going to work and doing the same thing, you're not going to get any different result. So even though there was a period of years that I was unhappy and I was searching, I was trying to actively figure it out, right? So like I said, I was reading books, I was listening to things, I was, meeting with people, trying to make connections and um, explore what it could possibly be, even if I didn't know it at the time what that was.
well,
Yeah,
that's an important lesson for everybody who's listening, right?
yeah,
Because I've seen it, you've seen it, right? All the people that bitch and moan about
yeah.
their job, but they're not doing anything about it,
Yeah, and
right?
there's no magic fairy that's going to plop a job opportunity that's going to be your dharma in your lap, right? You have to actively go for it and try to figure it out and grow all the growth that comes from the process, right? So that's kind of what I was doing at that point. And it's not instant. You're not going to just, pick up one book and know the answer after you finish reading it. It takes time, but trusting, right, in the divine timing that, when it needs to happen, it will happen. Yeah.
So how did it happen for you, right?
Okay.
Because again, sometimes, I mean, like you said, right, we're all sitting here like, come on
Yeah.
already, right? I'm doing all the stuff, why isn't this happening, right? So
Yeah.
how did it come to you? I mean, I guess obviously, like you said, you have to be open to it,
Yeah.
you have to be looking, you have to be doing some things, but how did it come to you?
Okay. So back, I think it was in March of 2018. I decided to go to the American Bar Association has a tech show every year in Chicago. And at the time, my firm, we're a pretty tech savvy law firm. So we were a paperless law office. We're in the process of upgrading to a new document management system. So we're, moving in the direction of getting some new software. And so I volunteered. I said, I'll go up to the tech show, and I wanted to meet some of the vendors, all that stuff. And at that time, my kids were even younger than they are now. So I remember I even have my planner where I wrote down, and I wasn't sure if I should go on this trip because, I wasn't at that point I hadn't taken any kind of trips and left the kids with my husband for that long of a time, like a week, and I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to put stress on him. And I remember like I had this little note in my planner that said, should I go to the tech show? Yes or no? Like it was, I remember a week I was kind of going back and forth on it, but ultimately I decided to just go and take the leap and do it. So I went up to Chicago. And one of the seminars that I took at this conference was called Running a Lean Law Firm. And when I say lean, I do not mean like on a budget, but in the corporate world, it's the Lean Six Sigma method of reducing waste and how do you make things as efficient as you can in processes and systems. So the concept behind the seminar was basically about specializing. Rather than doing a lot of attorneys are more generalists and do a lot of different things. But the concept was specializing, creating systems to have efficient processes and charging fixed fees that can still be profitable because you have the systems in place, right? And this is a little bit foreign for a lot of lawyers.
Oh, it's very foreign because they always do time and material.
Yes. So
right.
it's hourly billing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and it's that way for CPAs, for a lot of other professions as well, right? And it's like you're trading dollars for hours, or hours for dollars, right? Yeah. Okay.
And earlier in my career, I was interested in alternative fee billing, and I had tried testing samples with clients here and there. But it really is hard if you don't specialize, and the reason is you don't have the data to be able to collect to know how fast it takes and how profitable you can be on matters, unless you are specializing in something where you're doing it enough. So that kind of just sparked this thing in me where I was like, it's kind of made me perk up a little bit. And the speakers at this seminar had just authored a book on it. So I went down to the area where there's vendors, and I purchased the book, and I literally read it over the course of the next couple of days, cover to cover. And it basically sparked in me the vision of a law firm that I wanted to create that was specialized in commercial leasing, that was serving small business tenants who are the underdog in commercial real estate transactions. And just like it was one of those moments in your life where it's just every cell in my body was telling me that this is what I had to do. And I don't know. I felt like maybe there's one or two times in my whole life that I've had that. So I felt like I just had to do it, even though it was scary, even though maybe it didn't make the most financial sense, or, but I felt that strong, undeniable, compelling push to do this. And so literally on my plane ride home from Chicago, I was, just writing furiously, and laid out my whole business plan. I started having ideas and marketing my website, like all those things were just coming together like magic. And the funny thing is, my mom picked me up from the airport, and I was starving because I didn't get to eat on the plane. So we stopped by Panda Express on the way home to grab a dinner. And, Panda Express has those fortune cookies, right? So I cracked open my fortune cookie, and the fortune was something along the lines of, you are about to embark on a business venture. And I was like, right there, I was like, okay, that's just sealing the deal for me. Like, I know I have to do this, right? So after, I would say about a couple of weeks, I did do my due diligence. I did some research. I wanted to make sure this is for sure what I was going to do. And then right away, I went in to tell my former law partner that, I'm going to leave the practice, and I'm going to, do this thing. And I remember him looking at me and saying, it's never going to work. And he said, in Hawaii, you have to do everything to survive. Like, you can't specialize. It's not going to work. You're serving small business clients. Like, what are you thinking? Kind of thing. And I remember, looking him back in the eye and just saying, respectfully, I disagree. Like, I think there's something here, and I think that it will bring me fulfillment to serve this community. And so, he was very supportive, to his credit, in terms of, I'll support you, but I just still don't think it's going to work. I still get that, so from when I see colleagues, I remember for up until a couple of years after I went out on my own, I would bump into colleagues in downtown at the lunch hour, and they would say, it's always a concern. Like, they're always like, oh, are you doing okay? And are you getting enough work? Like this almost like pity kind of feeling. And I would be like, oh, I'm happy. I'm great, but that's definitely, I think a lot of people in town I've heard too, like maybe don't get it. They don't see why I would walk away from, having all of these established institutional corporate clients to serve small business.
Well, because that's there's a couple of places that we can go with what you just said there.
Yeah.
Right. Because there is kind of that prestige, right, that always goes along with, especially in professional services. People want to know who are your clients, and the external places value on you based on who your clients are.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, you've got Walmart as a client. Or I'm just using big names, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I must be somebody important if that's my client, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's almost like people are kind of pitying you, like, oh, poor Chenise, she had it made and then she gave it up. It reminds me of that John Lennon song, Watching the Wheels. I love that song, because it doesn't matter what other people think.
Yeah.
It only matters what's right for you. Right. Exactly. And so again, I'm guessing that by following this path, you had less stress than you did before. You felt more aligned than you did before. That's worth something, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't want to also, I just want to be clear, right? Like starting your own business and doing your own thing, it's still a lot of work. So it's not like it's not a lot of work, but there's a different vibration. I feel like when you're doing work that's more aligned with who you are, it's like I have this excitement. Like I want to go to work on a Saturday morning to work on my business versus, before if I had to work late on a client matter, it's like, oh, like I feel bad. I want to be home with my kids, or there's that conflict that you feel where when you're doing what you love, it's just like you feel like it lights you up and you want to work.
Well, that's why I think it's, because you and I know as entrepreneurs as well, right? That's a lot of people that aren't in that space. They can't understand, because my wife still looks at me like, it's Saturday or it's Sunday. Why are you working? It's like, because I fucking love what I do, But they don't understand, right? But even you don't have to be an entrepreneur to still feel some of those same things, right? When you're aligned, even if you're working for somebody else or you're, whatever it is, if you can find joy in what you're doing, right?
100%.
It doesn't matter whether you're a janitor or anything else, right? If you feel that alignment, you feel that joy from it, your life is totally different, right? And I'm guessing that this probably had an impact too on your personal and your home life as well, right? Going from the stress of the one job to now this. I mean, are you a different mom, a different partner, as a result of that as well?
Yeah, I think so. It's just that you are different. I think it's always important for me to model to my children too, right? And I don't want them to live their life and be stuck in a job for years and be unhappy. I want them to see what it looks like to be able to create a career that you love. And, they come to this past Saturday, I had to work on, I'm doing a migration of software. And so I was like, I need to get some work done. So we're going to the office and I just make it fun, So they hang out in my conference room, they watch movies, they, bring all their things they like to draw in my office and they love it. They always eat Subway because we have Subway in my office downstairs. And it's like something that they get excited and look forward to. So I think there's always ways to, show your children that joy too, and I think that that's what they will come to see as healthy and normal and all of that for themselves.
And actually including them, like
Yes.
that, bringing them down to the office, letting them play in the conference room.
Yeah.
You're making memories with
Yes.
your kids,
Yeah.
right? And I think sometimes that's where, I've seen it in my life and in other professions, right? Where you have to be a certain way in the profession, right?
Yeah.
And, oh, no kids allowed in the office,
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Well, why?
Yes.
Right? Why can't we do that?
Mhm.
And I think it, it makes memories for you. It makes memories for them,
Mhm.
as well. They see mom happy as well too, right? And
Yeah.
and that's why it's this separation that we have, or that we're told we have to have, between our profession or our job or our career and our family, doesn't need to be like this Chinese wall like a lot of people try to make it out to be, right?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Well, and I think I wanted to go back to, when you were in Chicago
Mhm.
and you had all these serendipitous events
Mhm.
actually happen, right? You said again, that particular session that you went to about
Mhm.
lean, and again, those are the kind of sessions that most people don't go to at the conferences, because they're like, what the hell do I need that for? Right?
Yeah.
I just need to bill more an hour. But you felt inspired to go to that session.
Mhm.
You sat through the sessions and you started having kind of some hits, what I call hits.
Yeah. No, I call them hits
You,
too.
you know, you know what
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I hear you.
You started having some hits during the session, and then it's like, oh, they have a book, and you go and you get the book and you read the book, and then you come back home and you go to Panda, and what's your fortune cookie? It's like all of these things line up. And what I wanted to bring up, because you said something to the effect of, these things don't happen like that, to that intensity,
Yeah.
very often in our lives. And so
Mhm.
those really are gifts when they come along, right? I mean, and again, for everybody that's listening, you've probably had a few of those. They may not have been career wise, but think about, like when you met your partner or your spouse, or, you fell in love, it's like all of a sudden it just feels like the stars all align, the fireworks go
Yeah,
off,
yeah.
you kiss and you have the little pop, the heel pop, as you're doing the kiss and everything. But those things, that magic does happen in life, right?
Yes.
But we have to be open to it. I mean, again, if you weren't doing the things that you'd been doing, if you hadn't gotten your butt to the conference, and have been open to it,
Yeah.
those things wouldn't have happened. So when people have experiences like that in their life, what do you tell them?
That, like you said, to be open to it, but also be willing to take action, right? So, a common thing that I dealt with, and I think other people probably do too, is my husband is a lot more risk averse. We had to have those conversations because he didn't like the idea at first, and he just thought it's too risky. And then we have a mortgage, we have like all this, all of the practical concerns that can hold you back, right, from leaning into these opportunities that the universe gives you. And we had to have many conversations about that to get comfortable with how can we do this in a way that makes you feel comfortable with our finances and all those things, as well as our life, because as any entrepreneur knows, like the first year of business particularly is like you have another child, right? It's like it's like an
Yes.
infant. So
Yes.
it's a lot of time, energy, effort, money, all of that is going to take your attention. And so, with your family, with your partner, how are you going to make it work? So I would say don't let resistance from someone necessarily let it prevent you from following that. Figure out a way. There's always a way. Is what I would say.
Yeah, well, that's where I wanted to go a little bit more, because you said don't let the resistance, because again, when you have hits like that are significant, life-changing kinds of things, right? It's change.
Mhm.
And all of us are uncomfortable with change. Even those of us that think we handle change well, we don't handle change as well as we think we do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just life, right? But I think it's interesting because, again, you came home, you had that discussion with your husband. Obviously, he's going to have some concerns. There's some resistance from there.
Mhm.
You talked about, your partner saying, well, it'll never work, right?
Mhm.
So anytime that we're wanting to change or transform or do something different, there's going to be people on the sidelines telling us that we're not making the right mistake, or
Yeah.
that we're not making the right decision, right? We're
Yes.
making a mistake.
Yeah.
It's just like you were talking about at the beginning, with all of your friends,
Mhm.
when you would see them and they'd almost pity you, like, oh,
Yeah.
poor girl, it's like, well, and I see a lot of people that do this too, where they choose to listen to what other people are saying
Mhm.
instead of what it feels like they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so then they never end up changing,
Yeah.
which is, it's a tough place to be, right? So again, I mean, when things like that come up, I mean, how do you deal with it? Because you dealt with that kind of resistance in your path as well.
Yeah. I would say I had to work through it. You know how they say like the only way around it is through it is really like I did feel all the fears as well, like any other person.
Mhm.
Like is it gonna fail? I don't know. Is all those things happened too, but I just kind of really what motivated me was that strong intuition, that feeling that I couldn't shake. Like literally, I would every time I'm on the road driving, I have all these ideas. It would just spark, spark, spark. When I would wake up in the middle of the night having to write down notes on like different ideas and things I had. It was, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like all consuming where that's all I thought about every second of the day almost. And so when you have that level of velocity, I guess, in what's coming, is like I couldn't, I felt like I could not, like if I ignored it, if I pushed it aside, it would be one of the biggest regrets of my life. So I felt like even if there's a risk of me failing, even if I might not make money for a few months or whatever, all the things that come with taking a leap like this, I felt like I had to do it.
Well, that's why that word, that regret, that you just
Yeah.
said, is
Yeah.
before you said that, I was thinking, how much of the time do we regret
Hmm.
because we felt like we were supposed to do something and we didn't?
Yeah.
Right? Those are the worst regrets in life as we get older,
Hmm.
is, that you hear people say things like, why didn't I take that chance?
Yeah.
Why didn't I call that person back after the date? Right? They
Yeah.
felt like my soulmate. Now I'm stuck with whoever, right? Not that that's ever happened to anybody, right? But of course it has, lots, right? But there's things like that, right? That again, when those inflection points come, I was actually just interviewing somebody else, and she used the term the chance of a lifetime. And I thought, it's like what you're talking about here, right? It's like all of a sudden, all this stuff kind of came, right? And
Yeah.
you had the choice. Are you going to take this chance of a lifetime,
Hmm.
or are you going to let it go by?
Yeah.
You chose to take it.
And so since we're on this topic, I want to give a children's book recommendation that aligns with what we're talking about. So shortly after, as I was in the process of, building my firm and designing everything, I came across this book on Amazon called "What Do You Do with an Idea?" I can't recall the author's name, but if you search it, you'll find it. And it's the most amazing book for adults and children alike, about what happens when you have an idea and what do you do with that idea and all the things that happen in your life that with whether people discourage you or you're ashamed of it or you try to push it down for a little bit, and all of that process. So I highly recommend anyone who's going through this kind of journey or trying to take a leap, to get that book.
I'm going to go buy that book
Yes,
myself,
yes,
right? I mean,
do it, do
it's
it.
there's a lot of there's a lot of wisdom in children's books,
Absolutely.
and a lot of, well, and to me, that's being open to some of the possibility,
Hmm.
right? Is that when you're open to possibility, little things that you would have just would have gone right over you, all of a sudden have a lot deeper meaning, or
Yes.
it's even something that you've heard 100 times before, but all of a sudden now that same phrase or that same song or whatever it is takes on a whole new meaning,
Yeah.
right, at that point.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's interesting too, because as we talked about that a lot of times there's people, we go into professions, we spend years doing it, we don't feel aligned, and a lot of people just throw away, right, everything that they've done to go do something else. And I'm not saying that's wrong, right, but it's like I could have, I spent the last 30 some years doing what I'm doing, and I could say, screw it, I'm going to go be a macrame artist for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Okay. I can, and if that's what I feel like I'm supposed to do. But I think it's interesting, again, you didn't throw out everything you've done, but you made a little course correction.
Yeah.
And there were actually a couple of little corrections during your career to get you to where you are.
Yes.
So maybe go there a little bit, because again, I think a lot of times people think, well, I tried something, it didn't quite work out the way I thought I was going to, so I'm not going to do it again. So how does, because again, it seems like from your story, there were kind of these milestones or things that got you prepared for whatever the next thing was that was coming.
Yeah. And what's funny too is, now looking back in my career, I don't regret being a litigator for a few years, because that informs my ability to advise my clients on contracts and because I know from firsthand experience what the litigation part looks like, right? Whereas some attorneys who only did transactions, they have no litigation experience. They actually don't really know firsthand some of the stuff that happens in the litigation context. So all of that helps me be a better attorney in the type of law that I'm doing now. And the same thing, like when I went then to a broader real estate practice, I got to learn all the things that I needed to do to be where I am today. So it all kind of led me to where I am. And one of the biggest things that, happened was so remember when I said that I told my law partner, I gave him lots of notice. Like I wanted to give him 5-6 months notice so that I could help him recruit, new associates, train, all of that. So he knew we were working toward my leaving, and about a month before I was set to leave, and I was already telling clients that I'm leaving, all of that was in underway. I remember I went to the office on a Monday morning, and my office manager walked into my office, and she said that my law partner had drowned the day before on Sunday while he was kayaking out in the bay. And it was just the worst ball dropping at the worst time possible, right? Like I just was like, oh my gosh. And then I had maybe a few days of just crisis mode. I was just trying to, figure out what to do, try to figure out how to take care of our clients, our staff, our, everyone. And the first few days was, kind of just on pure adrenaline where you're just going. And I remember that Wednesday, I, called my husband on the way home and I said, I'm not going to come right home. I need some time. So he's like, okay, do what you have to do. And I drove out to the pier and I just sat in my car and I just cried. Like I just let it out. I felt all the, all the why me, all that stuff. And then I picked myself up and then, moved on. I created a plan. I, took care of everything I needed to take care of, and everything turned out fine. So I spent the next like 3 months or so winding down the law practice, transitioning our clients to other law firms. But in all of that, even that also challenged my decision to start my own law firm too, because I had other law firms in town calling me, offering me jobs, offering to merge our firms. Like there was all kinds of things going on, right? And I might have, if I wasn't as strong in my belief of this vision, I could have just said, forget it, I'll just take that job at that other law firm, or I'll just, like there's lots of different directions that could have went. But I still felt that strong feeling inside. And so I still pursued it. And a lot of people said, oh my God, why would you do that? Like, you have like a whole law firm all to yourself with all these big corporate clients. Why wouldn't you just like, keep it? And I just said, I really just need to do this thing that I've been, planning to do. And when I look back, I really do believe that that whole crisis was a gift from the universe, because that was like an accelerated course in how to run a business. I mean, really, as a partner in a law firm, I don't think I fully appreciated or understood all that goes into owning a business, because, our office manager took care of most of the stuff. And I would make management decisions, but a lot of the day-to-day stuff was actually, not in my, what I was doing. I was just, serving clients, and then I getting my draw check. And so in that span of 3 months, like, I had to deal with so many business, financial, legal, all those other issues that prepared me better than I can imagine any other thing would have prepared me to be a business owner of my law practice now. And so I'm very grateful for that gift, even though in the moment it was crazy. I thought, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Right. But again, yet everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, well, and everything happens for us, right?
Yes.
Because again, it's as you were explaining that, because like you said, I mean, it's easy, it's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been convenient for you at that point to say, oh, okay, forget my dream, forget my vision.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, I've got this law firm by myself. Why the heck wouldn't I do this, right? I mean, it's I've already got the clients, blah 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 blah, right? And
Yeah.
so how much of the time though do we make those choices of convenience instead of the choices of conviction?
Yes,
Right?
I love that.
And you chose the conviction. No, this is what I'm committed to, this is what I'm going to do. But like you said, again, I haven't heard you play victim at all in any of this stuff that we've been talking to, right? Which is great, because so many of us end up going into that. Why me? Why is this happening now? And unfortunately, a lot of times while we're going through it, we don't know.
Yeah.
You just got to go through it.
Yeah.
But like you just said, this going through this with your partner dying gave you that crash course in owning your business that really helped give you what you need for now, right? Yeah. But unless you had gone through that experience, and I'm sure while you were going through it, you weren't sitting there going, oh, this is going to be so helpful later, and I'm so right? You're just like,
not at all, not
get
at all.
me through this, right? But that's because so much of the time, right, it's that reflection afterwards, mm-hmm. when we actually kind of understand. That Steve Jobs Stanford commencement. I don't know if you saw his speech on that. The one that really hit me, where it was, you can't connect the dots until you turn around and look backwards.
Yes.
Right. And it was that way in his life, in my life, in your life, right? When you're going through it, you can't connect the dots because you're still in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. It's the reflection and the learnings afterwards and looking back and going, oh, now I understand that. That makes a lot of sense, right? Mm-hmm. And I think what's interesting, for you, that even who you were in the 5th grade and what you wanted to do and why you went into the law, you're finally doing now.
Yes, after all these years.
After all these years, right? It's like we know, because that's why I for myself, I've kind of realized this. It's like, if we go back to who we were at like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, that kind of time frame, it's like, holy shit, right? It's like, but then we become, responsible teenagers, go to college, responsible adults, everything else. But when we realize what we really wanted back then, it's probably what we really want now. Yeah. And the reason why we don't feel aligned is because we don't feel like we can have what we wanted as a child. Oh, that's a childish thing. Mm-hmm. right?
Mhm.
Can't have that. You got to be a responsible adult. But what if you can do both?
Yeah.
And I think it sounds like you're evidence that you can do both.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And so that's what I like in my current law practice. I think I've incorporated more elements of who I am, even if it's not the status quo, what you think of a stereotypical lawyer, right? So I am, as much as I have the left brain side to do the legal work, I have a right brain side to me as well. I love, I've grown up being a dancer. I've been a performer, a dance instructor. I've taught children, adults. I've also loved, singing, design, photography, like all of that stuff lights me up. So I've kind of brought some of that into my practice, just in the way that I practice, in the way I market. I design my own commercial leasing infographics on my website, because part of what I wanted to do is help make things simpler and easier to understand for people. Like law shouldn't be this, legalese, foreign language type of thing. I wanted to simplify things and make it more accessible to more people. And I knew, when I first started out, people said, oh, you need to have a law blog. Like every lawyer, you need to have a law blog for marketing. And I was kind of like, meh about that. I was like, do I really want to spend time writing a law blog every week? Not really. And does my target client, who's like small business owners, would they even have any interest in that? No, absolutely not. Right. So I thought, okay, what can I do differently to offer value and provide resources that can help them, that they can actually use? And so my idea was like, hey, I'm going to design infographics, because hey, they look at it and they get the point within like 2 seconds. So I love doing that. That's what I do in my spare time when I do photo books for my family. And so I've translated some of what I do in that right brain hemisphere into my work, to make it more enjoyable, along with what I do for social media and all of that stuff, because it lights me up in being able to that self-expression piece, where a lot of lawyers, that's like not a thing for lawyers.
No, it's not a thing for lawyers. Having
Yeah.
worked with lots of attorneys over the years, yeah, it's both
Yeah.
corporate and firm attorneys. It's usually like shut off the personality,
Yeah.
for the most part. It's not just attorneys that do that either, by the way. But anyway,
Yeah. And so even being able to choose who I'm serving too, right? So when you niche down, and I can choose that I want to serve small business owners, that's my people. The work too is just a lot more fulfilling. I don't know how to describe it other than it lights me up. I know I'm helping, and they're always so grateful and appreciative for the help, and being able for someone to explain things, like I said, in a simple way, empowering them. Like my whole approach in the way I practice law too with my clients is more educational, because that's kind of my style too. I like teaching. So some people have experiences with lawyers where they don't, it's like they're matter, but they don't know what's going on, because the lawyer just takes the ball, runs with it, blah, 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 blah. And then they don't know what's going on. They're left out almost. And so my approach and style is I really try to educate them and empower them to make their own informed decisions for their business. Because, you probably heard that saying, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime, right? So I tell my clients, you are in a relationship with your landlord for years oftentimes. So I don't want to just do it for you and you don't know what your lease says, right? I want to make sure you understand, you actively participate in the lease negotiation, so that you really understand what your obligations are, what your rights are, all that stuff. And that's kind of what I do in this current practice, which is not what I used to do before, per se, working with big corporate clients.
well, and it seems like that's, like you said, it's much more fulfilling for you, but also, like you said, it's teaching people how to fish.
Yes.
Right. Because again, but so many people, especially in professional services, right, they're like, nope, I'm the expert. I am the only one that can do it. Right. Because if
and just trust me.
or if I let them know how to do it, then they're not going to pay me my hourly rate. Right. And so I'm sure that for your clients, that's got to be very refreshing too. Right. Because again, I know, having worked with and paid lots of attorneys over the years, right? It's like, how much did that phone call just cost me that we didn't need to have, kind of thing, where I really doubt your clients are feeling the same kind of way about you, because it's not that way,
Yeah.
and you're actually connecting with them as a human being, not as a transaction.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. It's, I'm really happy for you and that you've gotten to that point, where you do feel that alignment. You're happy, you're excited. I mean, it shows on your face and everything you do, as well, that's life's too short to have a crappy job that we hate. Right.
Yeah.
So, but also realizing you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Sometimes all it takes is that little switch, right? So
Yeah.
for you, that last one was just going from still doing real estate, law,
Mhm.
but it's a different group that you're serving.
Yeah.
That lights you up and gives you what you need. So
yeah, absolutely.
well, any final things as well here, pieces of advice or things that we left off that you want to make sure that we get in?
I would just say to reiterate your point about not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, because I just think people sometimes look at it so black and white, right? So the example you gave was throwing out the baby with the bathwater. But on the other extreme, there's also people who just say, well, I'm not going to follow my dream because that's not realistic and I need to make money and I need to pay my children's tuition. So I'm just going to be unhappy in this job forever. And there's so much space in between that where we can explore and we can maybe find something that, even though it maybe is not the ultimate endpoint, it might get us a little bit closer to where we need to be to get to where we want to go.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because like you said, usually we're so polaristic. I don't know if that's a word, polaristic. Like a good word,
Polarizing.
right? Polarizing, because I've seen a lot of people that are that way,
Yeah.
especially for example, like immigrant families and other people, where it's like the parents, they work really, really hard, and I'm, it's good enough for the mama, kind of a thing, because they're not necessarily doing what they want to do, but it's because they feel like they have to provide or give something, right? And so a lot of times, again, now you can find plenty of joy in doing that as well, right? It kind of depends on your mindset. But yeah, like you said, there's so many possibilities between those two extremes that you've just got to kind of work through and find what works best for you.
And just being open to exploring that possibility. And that's all. Yeah.
Exactly. Wonderful. Well, thank you for this, because like I said, a lot of people need to hear this. I needed to hear a lot of what we talked about today as well too. I mean, you know how that goes. We're always learning every day anyway, right? So thank you,
Jason. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on. If people that are listening happen to be in the Hawaii area and they're a small business and need to reach out to you, how's the easiest way to reach you?
I'm on Instagram, so people can follow me on Instagram at Ziva Law Hawaii. So my law firm is Ziva Law. So Ziva Law at Ziva Law Hawaii. You can DM me, or you can just Google me. You find me on Google.
Yeah, just type in your name, and it's amazing what you can find now. You can find anything on Google. Well, thank you, because like I said, that your story is great, and it's something that everybody who just listened to this, there's a lot of stuff in this that will help you have a better life, be more aligned, be happier. So thank you for taking the time to record with me today.
Yay.
Thank
Happy
you.
to be here.